we have people.
We have people joining in. So.
Wonderful people joining.
I'm just going to give it a few seconds as they're joining in. And
yes, and welcome as you all join in. Welcome to this program on Beingful Leadership. Welcome. Looking forward to an interesting conversation with Anand. And as we see the list of attendees that's growing fast, welcome again.
Yeah.
There we go. Hello, Savita. Hello. You can see, and feel free to use the chat. And let me turn it over to Pavitra. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. A very, very good evening to everyone attending from India, and also hope everyone is having a great day wherever you're joining from. I am Pavitra Madhira, and I work with Professor Ram Nidumolu at the Indian School of Business. Thank you again for joining us today. This is the first online event that we are hosting as part of the leadership series that we've titled Beingful Leadership in a World of Disruption. Through this series, what we hope is to host successful leaders and understand what it really is to be a leader in the changing workplace. Also understand the strengths, their core values, and what really defines success for them. Today's topic itself is self-leadership and business transformation. I will take a few minutes to just introduce the panelists that we have with us today. Our guest today is Mr. Anand Kripalu. Mr. Kripalu is currently serving as the Managing Director and Global Chief Executive Officer of EPL Limited. And this is the world's largest specialty packaging company. Prior to that, he was the Managing Director and CEO of Diageo India, which is a leading beverage alcohol company. He's also held leadership roles at Mobilize International, which was formerly Cadbury, and at Unilever. He has close to 40 years of experience in the FMCG industry, or the fast-moving consumer goods industry. Mr. Kripalu holds a Bachelor of Technology in Electronics from IIT Madras and an MBA from IIM Calcutta. He completed his advanced management program at Wharton Business School. Now, we've had the good fortune of hosting Mr. Kripalu in the past as well, and you'll find an older conversation on our Beingfulness YouTube channel, which this remains one of the most viewed videos of our channel so far. So we're immensely grateful to him for joining us again today, and we welcome him to this forum. I'll also take a minute to introduce our host for today. Our host is Professor Ram Nidumolu. Most of you would have attended his leadership classes at the Indian School of Business. So as you know, so as you know, Professor Nidumolu is a practice professor of organizational behavior at ISB. He has over 25 years of experience in conducting leadership programs for executives in strategic leadership and in digital transformation. He also has several years of entrepreneurial experience, having founded and led multiple companies. He's published works in academic and practitioner journals, including the Harvard Business Review. His efforts are currently focused on developing the theory and practice of beingful leadership and work. Professor Nidumolu was awarded a PhD in management from the Anderson Business School at UCLA and holds an MBA from IIM Calcutta. So we thank you both for your time, and I'll now leave the floor open to Professor Nidumolu to carry on the conversation.
Thank you, Pavitra. Thank you. And from your description, I think it's very justified in saying I'm a very confused guy, with this variety of things. And I'm looking for some clarification from my good friend Anand, who I've known now for several decades, actually. And as Pavitra and I were thinking in terms of how to host the series on leadership, Beingful Leadership, the first person I thought of was Anand, because we've had him before. He's immensely popular. He's had a tremendously successful career, and I've seen him up close, and just the leadership style that he has is very worth emulating, and especially in terms of self-leadership. So that's why we invited Anand on, and I'm looking forward to getting insights on how to deal with these difficult situations. We have a bunch of questions. In fact, many of you actually sent us questions, dozens of questions. We won't be able to get to all of them. But let's begin. So this is more in the form of an interactive dialogue, no formal speeches. But let me start with perhaps, Anand, just asking you, this is about self-leadership and business transformation. And there's no one better than you, I think, in India to talk about business transformation. You've been doing it in many companies. Let me just ask you, what are some experiences, some personal stories you may have, particularly as they relate to this kind of transformation at the individual level, changing individual mindsets and so on. Over to you, Anand.
Well, thank you, Ram, and thank you very much for having me, to you and Pavitra. I mean, it's a pleasure, and I think one of the privileges of being around, having been around for so long, for so many decades, is that hopefully you can dip into your experiences and share it with others. And I think this opportunity itself is a gift, in some ways, of sharing our experiences with others. So as far as business transformation is concerned, and I think each of them have been at an individual level, and just as an overall, and from an overall perspective, I have had the privilege of 3 experiences in organizational transformations. The first was in Unilever East Africa, where it was a business not growing for a decade, losing money for a decade, right? So that needed to be turned around. The second was Cadbury, the chocolate company, which was a company doing well, but somehow we were not getting to its full potential. So it was about accelerating performance of a company already doing reasonably well, all right? And the third was Diageo, which acquired United Spirits, which was the company founded by Dr. Vijay Mallya. And the task there was truly one of transformation. So one of transformation in every sense of the word, where you had to almost uproot the tree and replant it upside down. All right. So these were my 3 experiences. But I'll talk about maybe a bit of the first 2 as far as of driving transformation, particularly at the individual level, right? Because that was your specific question. All right. So East Africa, I arrived in Nairobi in August 2004. Okay. And I was sent this brief by my boss at that time.
Yeah. Years ago.
Yeah. 2004. So yeah, 20 years ago exactly. And my brief from the boss was, listen, we've tried hard enough to turn this business around. If you don't do it, we will shut it down. Right. So, I mean, no pressure. And if you think about it, for Unilever to exit a market because it failed at building a profitable business would have been real dent in Unilever's pride, right? Given the nature of the company and the success that Unilever has had. So I arrived in Nairobi and I started talking to people. And I spoke to a lot of people. And the first thing that struck me was that the entire leadership there were a bunch of victims.
Okay.
Every one of them externalized why the business was not doing well.
That is someone else's fault, is it?
It was somebody else's fault. They said, the economy is not okay. The Indian competitors, within quotes, the ethnic Indian competitors are non-compliant, don't do business the right way. Our regional office in Durban, South Africa, doesn't understand our market and tells us to do things that don't work. But basically what was interesting is that not one of those individuals in the leadership team had one thing to say about what they were not doing well or what they could do differently. So they were genuinely a bunch of victims, right? Who were just externalizing the problem that they were experiencing.
No, is it because they were afraid you would then blame them or that they would be seen as failures?
Well, I had just arrived. Okay. So, I mean, I had no baggage with these guys. And I was just talking to them and saying, tell me what's happening here. Why is this business not succeeding? What do you think is not okay? And all the things that they said was not okay was nothing to do with them personally. So this was a situation of I am okay, you are not okay. Okay. And I mean, I just started then traveling around the country, because I must tell you, in all transparency, Indians aren't really liked in East Africa, because they went 100 years ago to build the railway line and then completely took control of industry there because of the entrepreneurial spirit of Indians, and a lot of them from Gujarat. Okay. So they took over the industry there, right? And therefore, they also have this doubt about why do we need an Indian to come here and tell us what to do? So not only was there a situation where they were externalizing the context of that business and why it was not performing, but they were almost half rejecting this new person who had arrived with no baggage, saying, who's this guy and why do we need to listen to him?
What can we learn from you? Yeah.
Right. And not what we can learn. Right. So I had to first, of course, convince them to listen. This was a professional company, and I was sent here not because of my skin color or nationality, but hopefully somebody thought that I have the requisite competency and the experience to do this job. And, I took some time to then win over them, which I did. And then I traveled the length and breadth of the country. Right. And I came back and just articulated what I thought was basic stuff. Just doing the basic.
Stop you, Anand. So what was the most important thing in winning them over? Because that's a critical step. What do you think made the difference? Did they see you? What was the...
So I'll tell you what happened. And this happened in the first week or so after my joining. The regional HR head came down from Durban. And they did this NLA session, New Leadership Assimilation session, where I was actually asked to sit outside the room. They put down all their concerns and fears about me. And then I was brought in the second half of the day. I didn't know who had said what, but everything was captured in terms of what the leadership team felt about me, the doubts they had about me, right? And I was asked to respond.
Okay.
And I spent a couple of hours talking to them. And I think, honestly, what won them over was that I think they appreciated the authenticity and sincerity of why I was there and my genuine intent to help do what's right for this business.
Okay.
Right. And soon they were able to see beyond the nationality and the skin color and the person and the experience.
Okay.
Right. And I think the way the session went, I actually felt that I won them over because I think they started believing a bit of what I stood for.
Okay.
Right. So I managed to get through the initial hurdles and barriers. Right. And get them to see a bit beyond. Okay.
Did you also have to be vulnerable in terms of saying, I don't know certain things, or did you have to project this all confidence?
No. Well, I really did not know the country. Okay. These were guys who were born and bred in that country.
Right.
So I'll tell you what I did do, though. The next 3 months, I probably traveled more across the length and breadth of Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania than many of the locals.
Okay.
I went into some of the most dangerous slum areas of Nairobi where people don't venture. Now, the locals don't venture. And I sat in people's homes and talked to them with an interpreter sometimes, right, about the trade-offs they were making, the challenges they were going. So I built an appreciation for their country and their consumer. So then when I came back and presented what I felt were some of the key priorities we should focus on, I had the knowledge of the market and therefore earned their trust and credibility that, hey, this guy has now the right to comment, the right to give us a point of view about our country. Right? That's what happened. Okay. And very quickly, to cut to the chase, I articulated a very simple strategy where I could see certain things as clear as daylight. And it's the power of a fresh pair of eyes sometimes, and asking sometimes the most stupid questions, right, to truly understand why things are happening, and then use your past experience to marry what you are seeing and what a possible solution could be from your past experience, much like what consultants do by connecting the dots across different companies, different categories, different industries and experiences to give you a solution. Many of them are like us, but they bring in a fresh pair of eyes with different data points connecting it, right? So I was able to be that consultant in the beginning before I became part of the problem, right? I was still part of the solution. It was the early days. So I articulated a strategy, and, it's a separate story about, I've really believed in the importance and the power of communication as a leader, that leaders can never can never over-communicate. You can only under-communicate. Right. And therefore, I presented it, carried the whole team with me. And then we started. And, it's interesting. the business started motoring like exponentially. And at the end of the 12 months, the business grew double digit, turned profitable.
Okay.
And I'll tell you the most important message here really is, I left that business after 15 months and came back to India to join Cadbury. But that business continued to deliver double-digit growth for a decade after that.
Okay.
Because the people had started believing in themselves.
Right.
They had started focusing on what's in their circle of control rather than their circle of concern. Okay.
Yeah.
And really saying, what can I do
Okay.
to drive this
The
business
move
forward?
from being a victim to an owner. I own this.
A victim to an owner. Absolutely right. And I think that was the big, if I were to say, the legacy of my tenure there was that each individual there started believing in themselves.
Yes.
And built confidence in their ability to do stuff.
And then you moved on to, after that, next.
So then I went to Cadbury, okay?
Cadbury, okay.
And I walked into Cadbury and it was interesting. Cadbury had just come out of, many people will remember, 2003, 2004 was the Cadbury infestation crisis, where every day in the papers, there were photographs of worms coming out of Cadbury chocolate.
Okay.
Now, this is a product you put in your kid's mouth. I mean, can you imagine? The business had tanked. Now, I had nothing to do with the resurgence of the business and bringing it back, my predecessor. And really, the antibiotic there for fixing this was to obviously do tangible changes in the packaging to prove to people that it was purity sealed. But then the ultimate antibiotic was to bring Mr. Amitabh Bachchan to be the spokesperson for the Cadbury brand. Okay, so the business started coming back when I joined. Right, the worst was behind. And when you look back at the business, when I first took this job, and somebody said, this is the Cadbury brand. I said, wow, what a big brand. And then they would tell me the turnover of the company, and I would say, that's it. So the difference between how big I thought it was in my mind versus the actual revenue on the ground, in some ways, signaled to me possibilities and potential, untapped potential. Okay. So when I walked in there was this mindset again amongst the individuals that this business had grown at a CAGR of 9% or so for the last 10, 15 years. And that double-digit growth was very good. Okay, that was their belief.
Yeah.
So that is what they all believed. And I saw, when I was coming, I had the opportunity to look at India from Africa. And Africa was a modest economy. And I could see from there that 2005, 2006, the Indian economy had started booming.
Yeah.
So when I came back to Cadbury, I felt there was a party going on outside, but Cadbury was not invited to this party.
I see. Okay.
Because there was a boom happening outside, but we were still in the mindset of saying 10% growth is good.
So anyway, the ambition was not there, is it?
Was not there. So with, again, my first 100 days, first 3 months, whatever it is, I articulated an ambition of saying next 5 years, from 2005 to 2010, 2006 to 10, 5 years, we will grow 20%, double the historic growth rate, till 2010, 20% per annum. And the mindset of people saying, oh, it's never been done before, why will it happen now? Anand doesn't understand our business. He doesn't understand this category. Cadbury brand has been around for 60 years, right? It's a mature brand in a mature category. Why will it grow faster? Okay. All the naysayers, which means the mindsets of blocking and keeping us in the past rather than liberating us to go to the future, they were all at play.
Yeah. In some ways, that's what the growth mindset tries to change, right? The mindset of growth, the growth mindset is what
the growth mindset. And this thing about, there are some people I have discovered who are excellent managers of the status quo. And there are some people who are game changers, right? And it is not about intellect. it's just about fire in the belly.
Yeah.
And the belief that I'm here to make a difference versus I'm here to continue to do what's being done a little more efficiently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And I guess
And
what you're saying is especially mature companies need that fire in the belly. That,
you
we normally
need that
think of
entrepreneurial
startups.
spirit, that somebody who will come and disrupt the thinking and provoke, the business from doing things differently.
Yeah.
Right.
And how did you address the resistance that would come from this kind of, ambition and really pushing?
So it was
people
not
beyond the
easy. And, and I must tell you, I have always been a little soft, I must say, at taking the hard call on people. So I try and change people and how they think and their mindsets versus changing them. Okay, removing them and bringing somebody else. So the bulk of the people did not believe that this 20% till 2010 would ever happen. They were naysayers, and there was cynicism in the back. Hey, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But there were one or two, and it's interesting in companies, by the way, the closer you are to the coalface and the accountability for performance delivery, the more resistant you are for a step change in performance. So if you're in sales, you're in marketing, or in supply chain, you are the most resistant. If you are in HR, no disrespect to anybody from any function. But if you're in HR or in strategy, they will stand back and say, hey, we need to do much more and do much better.
Right.
So I befriended a few people, particularly the ones in strategy, right, and in HR. And I said, you guys work with me now at putting this plan together of how we will do it. Okay, now, an ambition without a plan is stupidity.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, it'll be a pipe dream. So I had a very detailed plan, which the strategy department worked with me on, and also about how to communicate and carry people, where the HR head partnered me, right? And I unveiled this whole thing, right? And I used lines like, there are no mature brands, there are only mature brand managers, okay, to tell the marketeers, all right, and so on. So I unveiled a strategy which was actually quite a shift. And just a few elements of this, I think the company was very busy making small changes on small brands and keeping busy, which make no difference to the business. They were achieving their personal KRAs, but those KRAs were not linked to making a big change that will turn the wheels of the business. In my first year, I killed 5 brands in Cadbury. I ordered them to stop producing and saying removed from the market.
Because they're not making big impact. They don't have big.
They were making no difference. And I said, those brand managers who are working on it, they're changing the wrapper or changing the flavor, it's making no difference. I don't care. Reduce the number of innovations. Half the number of SKUs in the company. Stopped all these promotions of 20% extra chocolate, buy one, get one free, one ball free on Bonvita. Stopped all that stuff and said, category creation advertising we will do. Because I used to say, if I reduce the price of cigarettes by half, how many non-smokers will start smoking? So people are not buying chocolate. They're not buying it because chocolate is not relevant to them. Right? Now, unless, I create relevance, why will they buy it? It's cheaper. All right? So, and at that time, by the way,
focus and relevance.
The penetration. So focus, the power of focus, less is more is less. Right? And really putting advertising money behind creating relevance for the category. And we started doing that. Right? So there was a very detailed strategy, right, at the end of the day. But growth started coming in. And, Cadbury Dairy Milk grew 30% CAGR for 8 years in a row thereafter. And the whole company grew at a CAGR of 25%. We ran out of capacity, both manufacturing capacity and human capacity, because the organization structure started tweaking. There wasn't enough people to support that kind of growth. And by the way, the most important thing is all the naysayers, the people with the negative mindsets, it's amazing how the moment the first signs of improvement start and the first signs of success come in, No, everybody wants to be part of a winning ship. Nobody wants to be left behind.
Mhm.
It's amazing how one by one, they all boarded the
To
ship.
come on board. So
They
really,
came on board and started sailing with me on that ship.
okay. Okay. So in a way, if your lesson from the first experience was ownership at the individual level, second is ambition. And then what happened? The next, I guess you went on to Diageo after that, right? With the pause with Kraft. What was your
So it was
Diageo?
Diageo because Cadbury went on to become Kraft and then Mondelez, right?
Yes, yeah.
So I tell you, Diageo, the experience was, I mean, so I must tell you this today, that when I got the job with Diageo, United Spirits, it's the liquor industry in India. Everybody has a negative view. Everyone, in the evening enjoys the category, but during the day, they love to say that it's a dirty category and people do business the wrong way. So they love the products, but they hate the way the industry does business.
Mm.
And I had butterflies in my stomach when I accepted a job. And many of my mentors from the past picked up the phone and called me and said, Anand, you're making the biggest mistake of your career taking this job, right?
Because you're entering an unethical industry.
Because I'm entering a dirty industry and, after working in clean, blue-blooded companies, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
Why are you joining? Okay. The other thing I must tell you is that I actually stood up in the first town hall on the 1st of October 2013 on my first day in the company in front of everybody and told them, guys, I have to tell you this. If my mother had been alive and I told her I'm coming and joining the liquor industry, she would have said, why, son?
Why are you doing this?
Why are you doing this?
Yes.
And the one thing in Diageo I was clear about from the day I joined, my purpose, end game purpose, was not only about numbers and stuff, but was to change the reputation of this industry so that tomorrow, if my son wanted to join this industry, he would not have to go through the same doubts that I had about this industry. So when I joined, I was very clear that I was here. I was 55 at that time. I thought it would be the last key job of my career. Right? Little did I know that I would still be doing something after that. But at that time, I thought, and I said, I can take the risk, right? To make sure I leave a legacy behind and transform this industry so it is never going to be seen again the same way, where the best of talent will want to come and work, where women will want to come and
just
work.
The profit and your purpose beyond the profit.
No, so profit was not the end.
Yeah.
It was the means. It was the purpose of changing the reputation of the company and the industry so that the best talent would work, so that women would want to come and work, because they'll say it's an honorable industry and women will not say that, hey, that's a dirty industry, I don't want to work there. And we will do business the right way, right? With honesty and show that alcohol can be sold responsibly, right? With compliance, right? And marketed responsibly as well, right? So that was the purpose with which I went. And there in we had to change probably 40 or 45 of our top 50 people.
Really? Okay.
So that was surgical.
I see.
And
why? What was the reason?
The industry had operated a certain way with certain behaviors. And too many people there believed that this business could not be done compliantly and honorably, that this business will close down if you did not do it in the ways, with the practices that had been pursued in the past. Right? Too many people believed that. And then there were discrepancies on various things, right? And much of it is in the public domain. I don't want to talk today about things beyond the public domain. Okay? But basically on compliance, on culture, on values, and on quality of people and talent, right? I was, the fear in the liquor industry of people coming in from outside the liquor industry was a bit like Hotel California. You can check in any time you like, but you can never leave.
Huh.
People would say,
Yeah.
once I joined the liquor industry, I had become a liquor man. Other industries won't touch me.
Okay.
Because you are tainted.
Yeah.
And we had to change a lot of this. Okay. So there it was about complete transformation in every sense. People, and I'll tell you, it was probably one of the toughest challenges, but the management experience of a lifetime.
Uh-huh.
Because those 8 years, right? And I'll tell you, while I was in it, it was bloody tough.
Yeah.
It was really hard. And you're fighting with people who don't believe in your purpose.
All levels.
In your purpose.
Yeah.
And I had to, tell people personal stories. I said, how can you be dishonorable at office and go back and teach your children to do good things?
Yeah.
I mean, I had to personalize it to that extent in my communication. I was very direct.
Yeah.
And I would make people feel miserable about doing wrong things.
Yeah.
Right?
This comes up often. Now, let me just quickly ask you, this comes up often. Often when we teach leadership or talk of leadership, integrity is an important one. But the response often is, this is all nice in theory. In practice, the world is different. You need to do things very differently. And that's the kind of deep resistance, right? You have to, how did you, so you mentioned you had to personalize it. What else did you have to do to show that, look, it can be done differently?
Well, I'll tell you, the first thing is that I made it clear that we will not do it any other way. And people who told me this, I said, I don't care. If this business closes, I will also retire and go home.
Okay.
So I made it so clear with every action that I had zero tolerance. And people said, there are states where I moved from market leadership to zero overnight.
Yeah.
But I showed them that I would walk away. And obviously, Diageo was a multinational company that had a majority stake, and I had to carry my stakeholders in London.
Yeah.
Right. But I had negotiated with them saying, one day you ask me to do something wrong, that will be my last day in this company. And I said, I will sign up if you guarantee to me that I will never be asked to do anything inappropriate, because at this stage of my career, I'm not going to sully my reputation and do stuff that is not going to allow me to sleep well at night. So this was about matching personal values and building a cooperation with those same personal values. For me, these are not two separate things. You can't say, I'm a pure person and I'm honorable, but I will build an organization that's willing to do anything. So for me, this doesn't exist, right? This personal integrity, organizational integrity, I think are one and the same thing, because an organization is made up of people and the values they bring to the workplace every day. It is not disjoint. Okay. So I had to do a lot of that and demonstrate it to people that under no situation will I give in. So you have to really walk the talk.
Walk away from a lot of money if you
walk the talk, and you have to stand there for scrutiny and stand up and say, yes, I've lost market share, but I'll tell you the message I gave many people in the company. I said, because that became an excuse for everybody not to achieve that target. So how do you solve that? Because every time you say you didn't achieve your target, they say, sorry, this is it can't be done.
Tied my hands.
Right? My hands are tied. And, I used to tell them this line. And all this I used to say publicly in the town halls. No? And I believe in telling people what I feel directly. And I used to say, if you miss your target, I will really chew you. But if you get your target the wrong way, I will kill you. Now you decide what you want to do. All right? Because that was genuinely the fine balance. Because I wanted people to still try and work hard and do everything. Right? Right. But never take the easy way out.
And did you find that once you insisted in integrity, the customers or the government officials then changed? Or would you consistently lose out? Was there a change in behavior on the other side? Once they realized you can't get around.
Slow but sure. Slow but sure. Right? One of the greatest matters of pride for me is that, all of you have seen the massive chaos in the Delhi excise issue
Yes.
in the news, right? And, nobody has gone unscathed in that. Diageo has not been mentioned once, not
Okay.
even in name, not even in passing. For me, that's my legacy of compliance,
Yeah.
right?
That's
Where
it.
even a shadow was not there on Diageo.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Okay,
Wonderful.
so that's the proof of the pudding, actually, in some ways.
That it took root. So anyway, so the key lesson from this is insist on business integrity, personal and business integrity.
I think it's too easy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you have to decide what you want to stand for.
Yeah.
And by the way, in the world, you always have a choice.
Yeah.
And the choice is to pick up your bags and go and work in a place which matches your personal values.
Yeah.
Right? So don't say that I'm a victim again. And what do I do? Right? I have to do it this way. You don't. You have a choice. The question is, and I'm sure everyone in your audience are smart guys. They've made it here to attend your programs, to this institute. Every one of them will have a choice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now you have to choose. Right? But if you
But the key
choose,
is,
then you live with it.
but then they would say, look, Anand, it's fine for you. You're successful. You've done well. But I'm at an early stage, perhaps a middle manager. It's extremely difficult. It's going to be hard finding other jobs. What do I do? The alternatives are not there like you had, for example. What do I do?
And it is possible. Right? Right? Now the question is this, right? There are lots of things in life you can. I just believe, okay, and this is part of who I am. I just believe there is no wrong way to do the right thing, no wrong way to get the right result. Right? And I just believe this passionately and deeply.
Yeah.
Right? And I just think that, yes, one door may close.
Yeah.
But often other doors will open, and sometimes better doors will open.
Better doors, madam.
The question is, do you stick to your conviction? Let us say your child is not doing well in the exams. You have no choice. So will you tell your child, go and cheat?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And get through your exam by cheating. Do anything, right? Beyond effort.
Yeah.
But do the wrong things to get the right result to pass your exam. How many people will actually give that advice to their children?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the question is, where do you draw this line?
Yeah. Knowing your line is very clear, very important. And so that brings up this interesting one. I was thinking another 5 minutes of questioning. Middle managers are often the ones caught in this situation, right? They have these targets from senior managers, senior executives saying, do this, get these sales, get these numbers and expectations. And then their team itself, often millennials and Gen Zs, have a very different style. May not be on integrity, but at least the style of working. They're caught in the middle in a dilemma. How do they deal with this? Two different stakeholders with very different expectations above them and below them. What do they do about it? What would you suggest?
Yeah, I must tell you that this was actually one of the dilemmas in Diageo and United Spirits. Because what happened is, the senior leadership, largely we changed. And I could directly influence them to change, either change them or make them behave differently. At the lowest levels, we had a lot of fresh people. It was genuinely these middle guys who were the guys most stuck in the past.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'll tell you what I have tried to do is try and adapt as much as possible. So there are a lot of people who have grown up in a certain brick and mortar ways of working in the world and are stuck to that. Now the Gen Zs will come, they'll want flexi timings, they will want to work from home a few days a week. They are the guys, they will be really concerned about sustainability and values. Actually, many of the younger people, right, are much more concerned than the senior management that I want to work for a good company.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. I don't want to work for a bad company.
Yeah.
Okay. And you have the middle guys who sometimes have, grown up in the old world, right? Got used to certain things, ways of doing it. and are actually resistant to change. And then you are genuinely caught in the middle because the top guys want results.
Yeah.
But how you will get results from this new generation of people is a whole new ball game now.
Totally.
And by the way, none of them is joining to be unsuccessful. They may have a different worldview. They may want to not retire from this company. They are not worried about their pension. They do not want to invest in a house. They want to spend on experiences, on holidays, and going to the bar and drinking in the evenings. But every one of them, make no mistake, wants to work not necessarily hard, but work smart.
Yeah.
But get the job done. They also know that every one of them wants a career. They've not come there for a holiday. Right?
Yeah.
And every one of them wants to succeed.
Yeah.
But they have just different views of how to succeed, how to work. They're far more concerned about work-life balance. Right?
Yeah.
In the old generation, if our boss called us on Sunday morning, we'll say, yes, sir. Right? If he sits in the office till 10 p.m., we'll be sitting there even if we don't have work to do.
Yeah.
These younger guys will not.
Yeah.
They'll pick up their bag and go and say, I'm meeting my girlfriend or boyfriend, right, at the bar, and I'm going there. And I'm not going to sit here in the office and do nothing.
And if you want to join us, do join us.
Yeah. And if you want to join, please join. Now, we have to adapt and change. But make no mistake, they want to be successful and they want to get the job done. Yeah. They are not coming there to fail.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Or we are hiring the wrong people. Then you've got a problem with your recruitment. Right?
So the message is, so really to know how they want to be successful, what's the message there then?
Well, I think it is about how you lead them.
Yeah.
And how you will adapt your style of leadership to get the best from this young generation of people. And I'll tell you, there is a way, if you sit from the rooftops and try and manage them, my experience now, I'm telling you, this is not theory, right? You will never build an emotional bond with them.
You have to be with them.
My style, I must tell you, when I went to Africa, in my first 3 months and so on, I would go out to the bars and pubs where the youngsters went.
Okay.
With the youngest trainees in the company and spend the evening with them and drink the beer they drank and eat the food they drank.
Okay.
But you know what? I had a personal connect built with them at the end of that. So they didn't think of me just as the boss. Yeah. I was also a friend to hang out with.
Yeah.
So I think everyone has to have their own style of engagement and leadership.
Yeah.
But these youngsters are less, they're not going to call you sir. They're not going to stand up when you walk in. You know, they will respect you not as your seniority or your level, but for the kind of person you are.
Who you are.
Authenticity and the kind of person you are gets you leadership credibility and more importantly, followership. Yeah.
And I'm just follow up on this. You mentioned authenticity and these are critical. So what are some personal habits that you've developed over the years on a daily basis that enable you to, you know, keep growing, keep understanding other people, learning new things? What are some habits you have that help you to, you know, yes, to keep, keeping your mind open, keep growing? What do you do on a daily basis?
So I don't think I'm very planful about this, okay? However, my learning has come from me doing jobs outside my comfort zone.
Okay.
And taking on things where I believe I can learn, right? So for instance, today, I'm the chairman on the board of Swiggy, okay? Now, the Swiggy brand only exists in cyberspace. There's no shop.
Yeah.
Okay. But when I see those guys 10 years out of MBA school, each of whom is going to be worth far more than I ever will be, right? And their savviness with data and analytics and entrepreneurship and ability to experiment and fail and learn and experiment again. Oh, that keeps me young. Huh? So that teaches me a muscle or two. I've also on the board of advisory board of a leadership consulting firm.
Okay.
Called Leadership at Humanity. Now, I've never been an HR person.
Okay.
So I'm a leader through practice only, through my jobs, right? Not a practitioner or or a practitioner, but not not person who studied the subject, so to speak, right? But something called Leadership at Humanity, where their purpose is to bring back humanity into leadership.
Yes.
And therefore, I'm getting involved with, many of their offsites and stuff like that, right? Which I've never done, HR interventions on leadership, right? I'm on the board of governors of IIM Jammu, right? And I'm involved with students and faculty. So each of these is outside my normal comfort zone. Okay. So I learned from that, and I think this keeps me helping to build new muscles. Okay.
Keeping you fresh. Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you. And I'm going to now spend the next 15 minutes. Thank you, Anand, for those insights. I'll spend the next 15 minutes on some of the questions that have been posed in the Q&A panel, beginning with the question by Padmini. In today's world, we talk about women empowerment and the fact that inclusion helps tremendously. Higher levels of emotional intelligence make sway. What is your experience and take on this? In the connection between emotional intelligence and women empowerment. This question has come up often, even earlier.
So I think, I don't know about the link so much between emotional intelligence and gender diversity, but I will tell you about gender diversity and my personal experience. And my personal experience the hard way, by the way. So, I worked through my career, early part of my career, when there were hardly any women in the workplace.
Okay.
I mean, it was the odd woman, and very often it was the secretary in the office.
Okay.
I mean, that was how it was. And I joined Cadbury, and we had only men in our leadership team. And for a moment, it didn't even cross my mind that was not okay. And the business was doing really well. And we had this cover story in Business World with a photograph inside of the leadership team. And one of my friend's wives had gone to the house for dinner.
Yeah.
At the dinner at her house, she accosted me and said, "Anand, how could you?" So I said, "What?" She said, "I've read your Business World story." I said, "How could you?" I thought she said, "Wow, Anand, you're a great guy. Well done. Fantastic." She said, "How could you?" Right? And she said, "Not even a single woman in your leadership team." And in some ways the penny dropped. And I'll tell you, we got 2 women on, right, in my leadership team in Cadbury. And by the way, in Diageo, 1/3 of my top 50 were women. I told you I changed 40 to 45 of the top 50. When I left, 1/3 were women.
Okay.
Half my leadership team were women. And I'll tell you, I have genuinely learned that women bring different experiences to the workplace. Therefore, their points of view are different, right? I think they're also far more disciplined at the workplace, to be honest with you. They don't sit and waste time and faff. And by the way, I've had a working wife through 40 years, right, who's also my batchmate from IIM. But, she's been going to the workplace, and she used to pick up her bags at 5 p.m. and come back home because she said, "I have stuff to do." All right. But I have genuinely learned the power of diversity in bringing out the right discussions to get to the best decision. Okay, different points of view. And, and I told you that in the alcohol industry, right, we first started changing the reputation. When I walked in on the 1st of October 2013 into the management committee, the boardroom in Bangalore, we had 25 people around the table. Not one woman. 25, that was the management committee of United Spirits. And all middle-aged men. And I thought to myself, you get the reputation you deserve. Okay. So we changed that, brought in the women, and I have learned through personal experience the power of, and I'll tell you, the change of the narrative of the alcohol industry. And what we did was hugely to do with the fact that now women were in the workplace. Women brought in that perspective, right? And when people saw this company, they didn't see it as the kind of company it used to be, but a very different company. So, so it's not about emotional intelligence, but I think the experience of gender diversity. And initially I used to say that, no, we have to do it. But it's not just the right thing to do. It is good for business. And I think there's too much of data now to say it's not just the right thing to do. It's good for business, and it makes a real difference to your business environment.
because you consider so many different viewpoints, right? But so it's interesting, there are quite a few questions on startups. There's one in terms of biggest leadership in terms of startups, but let me ask a question that Abhijit is asking. Today's startups are coming up at every corner of the road. And I always come with the thought that try to do rather than a polished leadership job. What is your thought process in terms of leadership in startups? From what you see in terms of the companies you work, are these leadership principles different for established companies, startups? What do you feel it takes to work effectively with them and to succeed in that environment?
So, I mean, whatever little experience I haven't worked in a startup myself, and I've been on the Swiggy board for 2 months and attended one board meeting. So I don't want to, overstate my knowledge in this area. All right. But I'll tell you my experience is these founders come not because they are great leaders, but because they have great ideas and they are great entrepreneurs. They are risk takers.
Yeah.
They can work 24/7. They are passionate about the idea they have. They're willing to put their career and their money at risk.
Yeah.
And they start building something. Many struggle the moment you get the first semblance of scale. Because then the entrepreneurial mindset is not there with everybody in the company. You have a large team. Many people have joined for careers, right? Don't have that same passion. Need to be led and managed and motivated and all the classical stuff that leaders do. And the founders will work at midnight, call the people at midnight, and many of the guys are demotivated and say, what kind of place is this to work? Right? And I think that's where the more formal construct of leadership becomes a necessity. And many of them who try and remain at the helm, and sadly, we have had, forget the small ones that have failed, but you've had so many governance challenges once they have got to scale in many of these startups, right? And it's all in the media. And that's because the management of scale is very different from the management of a startup. Right? And then if you have worked in a scale company, and I don't know any other way, but in a scale company, you use more the principles and the tenets that you have grown up seeing and using, and that does help. But you still need to create an entrepreneurial microcosm there, right? You don't want to overly make it system-based where the entrepreneurial spirit is killed either, right? So it's 1 + 1 = 11. And how you do that, I think, is dexterity, really, how you marry the two.
So in a way, that's the biggest leadership challenge, to address some other questions. What is this managing scale in a setup that initially just managed entrepreneurial? Okay. And then let me end, I know we're getting close to the end. Let me end with a question that's more general, that applies to startups, businesses, life in general. And that is to do with being positive. If you're in a negative setting, negative work environment, whether it's at work in a large company, small company, startups, just life in general, what have you found has been effective in staying positive? Clearly, your story across these 3 companies is one of staying positive, right? In a setup where it is, what have you found is effective at the individual level in staying positive?
So, first and foremost, I have to say this, I'm an optimist. And I don't know whether it's come across in this conversation or not, but I'm basically an optimist. I'm a glass half full person. I'm not a glass half empty person. So I tend to look at the positives. Now, when you're going through a negative time, actually, that's when leadership, and leadership doesn't mean the CEO, and people think that, the only leader in a company is the CEO. It's not true. Anybody who manages people is a leader, right? And many of you guys on this call today are leaders in your own right. Leadership is only tested in tough times, in a crisis, right? I mean, how many generals do we remember of great armies who were peacetime generals? But you remember the names of people who won wars for you, all right? Because that's when leadership is truly tested. Then if you're in a crisis, let's say you are going through turbulent airspace, and the captain is not confident of taking you through that, captain of the plane or the ship.
Right.
How would you feel as a passenger on that plane or on that ship?
Yeah.
Now, somebody has to give hope. Somebody has to show the future. Somebody has to stay in control. I think that's the role of leadership. And I think if the leader doesn't believe that there is a way out of the crisis, you might as well all go home anyway.
And
Right?
so, in a way, you're saying, even if you are not confident, at least fake it. Fake it
No,
till
not
you...
fake it, not fake it. So I'll
Okay.
tell you, the way I do this is, I look for a point of view, a silver lining, a
Okay.
way out of it.
Okay.
Okay. And listen, if there's really no way out of it, then you're on a dead wall, go home.
Yeah.
But there is always a silver lining in every dark cloud. There is always some light at the end of even a very long dark tunnel.
Yeah.
Now, it is the leader's job to show the future,
Yeah.
to show the way,
Yeah.
and create positivity and hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
say that, okay, we're in a crisis, but
Yeah.
I'll tell you a few things that we will do that we will emerge stronger as a team. When
Yeah.
we get to the other side, we will be stronger than we were before. We will be stronger than our competition. We'll be better. But
Yeah.
if nobody, if nobody is able to give that positivity, then how are the passengers on this plane going to feel?
Right.
That plane is going to crash.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Okay. So that is my style, right?
Yeah.
Of saying you have to look at the positive. Now, for me, it actually is natural because I am an optimist. But if you're a leader, you have to look for that silver lining in every dark cloud.
And in a way, tying back to that first lesson, own that silver lining, right? Find and own it. That silver lining. Yeah. Don't...
Find and own it and show the way. And and sometimes small wins,
Yeah.
small positives, small movements.
Make a
And
difference.
celebrating those can, don't underestimate how much of the mindset it can change about creating positive change and momentum. Right?
Okay.
Because
Okay.
every one of these things starts small.
Right. Right.
Right? And then builds momentum.
Small wins make others fail. Let me end. We have just 3 minutes. Let me just end with one last thought from you on the future, like leadership in the future. Any quick, of course, a big topic, but what's the word that pops into your mind when you think, how will the future of leadership be different from today? With, of course, new
I think
technology
the fundamentals of people leadership
will not change.
will stay the same. Now, the vision a leader must have, the knowledge of the environment, the ability to connect technology and what's happening there, and make sure they bring the right people to chart the future strategy of the company. I think some new skills and knowledge of the environment will be necessary to make sure that you don't get disrupted in a world of change. But how to motivate people, how to lead them, how to bring their passion to work in the workplace. I think those, I believe, are fundamental human values that I think will stand the test of time.
Do you feel that kind of motivation will also have to be done with artificial beings in the future? AI?
I don't know enough about how artificial beings are going to behave and operate, to be honest. But I think whatever happens,
Yes,
people will still be there.
good.
Human beings will still be there. Right? I don't think, at least, I obviously don't know enough and I'm nobody to make a sweeping statement, but I don't think they're going to take over the world. Artificial beings are going to take over the world, and we are going to become subservient to these artificial creatures.
On that positive note, Anand, I want to thank you for this fascinating, highly engaging, and I would say passionate, really passionate is the word, that we did this exchange. Thank you very much for that. And I really appreciate it, and hopefully look forward to more such conversations in the future. Today was all about the individual level. Hopefully we'll talk about the strategic level and other levels in the future. Thank you very much. And once again, thank you to the audience for being here. Thank you to Pavitra for organizing this. And thank you very much again, Anand. Take care.
No, thank you, Ram, and thank you, Pavitra, for having me. All right.
Of course, this was great. We do have a lot of questions unanswered, but we hope to get to them in the future. We'll have a version of this video also shared on our social media. So if anyone missed the live session, they can go back and watch this later. But thank you so much for your time, Mr. Kripalu and Professor.
Thank you very much. Thank
Pleasure.
you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank
And
you.
good luck to all the participants as well.
Yes, thank you. And thank you again to the participants. All the best. Take care then. Bye-bye.
Bye. See you. Bye.
Thanks again, Anand.
Bye.